Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial of NX Studio. Now, I made at least 2 videos before, but why I'm making another tutorial of Nikon NX Studio? Now, I've been looking at new Canon cameras for myself, and I found out that Nikon has released a new Nikon Z30 APC camera. Now, it's a tiny, small, just perfectly fine for my need, and the latest technology. But before buying it, I thought that I should test the raw files in NX Studio. So I thought, why not I download a sample raw file from the website called photographyblog.com and make a video about it. So it's their photo, it's not my photo. But because it's a educational kind of software video, so normally it should be fine and shouldn't be any kind of copyright violation. And also I hope that it would be useful for you too. Now, before jumping into this tutorial, a few things I want to mention. One, which is, if you could go down into the description below, there, trust me, I don't have just the donation link. I do have affiliated links for Affinity, not Affinity, Luminar Neo, or the On1 Photoro or Topaz softwares. I mean, buying them helps me so that I get paid for my free work. Anyway, moving on to this tutorial. Now, those who already knows the interface obviously can skip forward. Those who don't know, this is how it looks like. Now, on the left hand side, you can navigate to the folder to get to your files. Now you can close it if you don't want it anymore, so that you have more space. Now at the top, I can clearly see you have the thumbnail option, and it's the second thumbnail in the list option, followed by this way, just the full screen, and this is side by side comparing with one photo and two photo, like that. So you can click in the screen and then select a photo. Then you can go to the second screen and select another photo, so we can actually compare side by side, and you can zoom in at the same time simultaneously, which is pretty cool. I find it pretty cool. Now you can do the same thing with 4 images, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. This is the side by side of exact edited before and after. So I'm going to go back to the other one because I haven't done any edit yet. And you have the filter option, just like Lightroom. Zoom in, zoom out, pretty useful, basic but useful. Now at the bottom, you can see at the bottom. Are you looking at the bottom? Good. So here at the bottom, you have 2 things. One, show RAW and JPEG as a single image. So if you have same image, RAW and JPEG, it will show you as a single image. Otherwise, you can separate them. Same thing, show sequence as a single image, meaning that let's say you're doing a time lapse or HDR, it will all show you as the same image. Now this image, you can clearly see at the middle, it says DP review because the sample image has been downloaded from DP review to check the raw file of another Nikon Z, I think 9 raw file. But I'm gonna make the whole video based on this because that's the one that I'm interested in. Now, third button, it shows the focus point. So you can see the focus point right now, the red little circle. It's not circle, square. I'm gonna turn it off, it's kind of annoying. Followed by a grid, which is pretty cool. And then information. So when you click it, it shows all the details of the the metadata, basically what lens you have used, what camera you have used, and ISO information, shutter information, etc., etc. You get the point. And if you click the histogram, it will show again the histogram separately. which is sometime turn out to be useful. You can rotate the image if you want. Again, useful. Now, why I picked this image particularly? You see in the middle, the highlight is quite blown, right? So even for me, I'm gonna find out exactly what is the dynamic range for this camera and how much I can recover, which is very interesting. Now, before getting to the editing part, in order to register another software, for example, you have done your edit. Now, you want to open this edited image directly into, let's say, Luminar Neo. You can go at the top left corner and then click File, Open With, and click Register. And you can actually click Add and then select your software that you want to open with. Very interesting. Now, important part. Destination for the files open in other application. Why this is important? Because if you don't dedicate it, it will be saving in your default folder, which is not recommended because you should know exactly where the files are ending up at the end before ending up into your other software. You probably realize that your hard drive is filling up without knowing exactly why they're filling up. Now, keep an eye on this curve here. Can you see the curve on the left-hand side? No, sorry, on the right-hand side. Now, if I'm moving the cursor on the image, it's showing directly, simultaneously, exactly where the image information is. This is extremely crucial because by doing so, you can actually use just the curve, which is the most powerful tool in the photographic software history, without any hassle. You don't need to kind of assume. You now you can see visibly exactly where to click in order to change the luminosity. For example, in this case, I want to change somewhere here, right? Now, you wouldn't be able to assume where exactly it is. But now I know because I can see it. It's top, very top right corner. Now, anyway, so I just told you how to register another software such as Luminar Neo. Now, you can edit video. I'm not into video and I don't have any video samples. So I cannot show you exactly the function of editing video in NX Studio. So I'm going to cancel it. Next to it is open another apps. So, like I said, I registered Luminar Neo. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add, let's say, Affinity Photo. Can I do that? No, not Affinity Photo, Dehancer Lightroom. This is a very interesting software I'm going to show you later. But I'm going to click OK for now. Now, after that, the slideshow maker, print, upload to the dedicated software and export, which is pretty easy peasy lemon squeezy. Right, enough with the interface. There are more to it. Of course, at the bottom you have the star. You can click star. It's pretty much tagging like Lightroom. Good thing is that if you're a Nikon user, congratulations, you will never need Lightroom ever again because this is the best software for any Nikon camera. Period. Not Capture One, not DxO, Photolab, nothing else. Just simply forget about them. If you want, serious editing such as, dodge and burn, extreme dodge and burn, or replacement of a sky, or any kind of fine art editing, in that case, sure, go ahead. Use Luminar Neo, use Photoshop, or if you have to fix it. But if you want to do a normal editing at the highest quality you can imagine for any Nikon camera, this is it. Anyway, enough about that. Histogram. Now let's talk about the histogram. In the histogram, you can change to RGB or just R, just G, just B, or just brightness. They're important because you want to know information separately you have the option. At the bottom, you have the adjustment. Let's start with the adjustment. But next to it, you have the info, all the file info that you can imagine that nobody cares. You have them. And XMP file, again, unless you're exclusively working for any kind of magazine or news agency, these are kind of personally useless. Now, at the bottom, you have this adjustment, you have this original value. Then you can copy and paste. Like, for example, you edit and you do all the copy, all the adjustment, and go to the other photo and then paste all the adjustment. You can save the adjustment after editing, which is like a Lightroom preset. Now, use gray point sample tool for adjust the white balance. Now, I don't have a gray point here. So what am I supposed to do exactly? Because it's a raw file, you can start with chronologically. For example, you have the picture control. You can click it and see what is working for you. The recorded value is standard in this image. You can use all the classic Nikon picture profiles like standard. You can even do monochrome, for example. You can do landscape or, flat, for instance, so that, there is a linear curve. Flat is a linear curve so that you have more, the wiggle room. That's the word, meaning that it kind of reduces everything so that you have more choices. Like a cinema, you know what I mean? And you have other things like a creative picture control. I don't know what is them, because let's say I'm going to click it just for fun, like a dream. I'm going to change it to something else, for example, toy. I mean, they're fun, huh? Really. I love most of them time to time, but I actually never use them. Now, I'm going to go back to auto, enough with the fun time. Now, each of the picture profile, even though you select them by default, you can edit them separately. For instance, at the bottom, you have the quick sharp, just a quick adjustment of sharpening. You have the global sharpening, quick sharp, sharpening, mid-range sharpening, and clarity. There's 4 different type of sharpening. So quick sharp is like a sharpening globally. You can see that all the sliders are moving at the same time at the bottom. Or you can separately kind of do the sharpening if you want to. Be careful, don't over sharp. Just because you have slider doesn't mean you need to pull them. Don't be a kid. Now you have the contrast. Again, depends on your need for contrast. If you don't need too much contrast, why use contrast slider? But I'm going to show you anyway. Go down. You have no contrast. Go up. You have a lot of contrast. Saturation, again, is a dangerous slider. If you go all the way up, it becomes way saturated. If you go down, it becomes way less saturated. But pay attention. Those sliders are not aggressive. Normally, if you take the slider all the way down, it's supposed to become a little bit like monochrome, but you can still see colors here. So good news is that these sliders are, safe slider. I call them safe slider. So you can play with them a little bit more than the actual other sliders. Now let's talk about white balance. White balance is basically getting the neutral color tone, global color tone. Do you want really hot, like it's Mad Max, or do you want really cold, like it's just after the sunset or in Antarctica. In my case, I personally don't care. I always keep it to auto. However, those presets are extremely awesome. For example, if you're inside the house with the fluorescent, those are pretty, to be honest, awesome. Now, this is a natural light. So you also have another natural light auto, which is pretty phenomenal in my opinion, because they actually thought about it. Like, auto white balance in natural light is different than auto white balance in artificial light. Pretty simple, which is pretty cool. So I invite you to really look at each and every single of them and understand your photo. Like if you're taking a photo in an area where direct sunlight, I recommend you to use the direct sunlight. Don't play too much. In French, we have a say that "prends pas la tête," meaning that don't lose your hair over a single thing. You have many other things to think about. So keep it simple. If it's natural light auto, use the natural light auto. If it's sodium vapor lamp, use that. Unless if you have a particular taste, do that, and you can record the adjustment or saving the preset, which is very good for professional photographers. See, they talk about professional photographers. So that's pretty much it with the white balance, followed by exposure composition. Now let's go all the way up to 5. It's an exposure composition. What else I have to say? Just like in camera, you take the exposure all the way up or all the way down. Now what else? So you got the exposure, active delight. It's very common. It's basically one of those bringing a little bit more dynamic range for your Nikon camera. Let's try with the extra high. So it makes it really bright, or low. So it bumps up. So I'm going to go chronologically: low, normal, high, extra high 2. So you get the idea. Adjust brightness and color. Right, what is this? Again, you see there are many sliders. Like it's like a festival of sliders here. So you have a picture controls. In the picture control, in each picture profile, you can separately control saturation, contrast, clarity, and sharpening. That being said, if it's not enough, you have the white balance for the color. You have the exposure again for the exposure. You have the active delighting. Again, at the bottom, you have the adjust brightness and color all over again. So brightness and exposure are not the same thing. That's another story. But if I go all the way up, what happens? You can see that, again, it made it too bright. But think about it. This brightness actually raised the saturation all over again. Now, why I'm saying that? If I go back, now, if I go to the exposure compensation, you can see that the exposure is much more stronger than the brightness, and it's not really affecting your saturation. Your red pretty much is still the red. So exposure composition is quite safer than the brightness, because brightness will also raise the saturation. So in that case, you need the saturation slider to, reduce the saturation. Same contrast. We understand. You can highlight protection. You can protect your highlight. You can protect your shadow. Delighting. Let's see what is this. It's basically the active delighting, more or less the same thing, but as an option of slider. So instead of using the each preset, you can use the slider. And needless to say, you can save it with record adjustment. Right, just a reminder, a little bit of pause and go down to the description below and take a look at what I have to offer you. Any of your help will support me hugely. If you want. If you don't want, doesn't matter. Life moves on. Earth will continue to circle with or without me. Now, moving down to, where was I? Adjust brightness and control. So you get the idea that you have a separate control for each brightness, saturation, highlight, shadow, and contrast. Now going to the one of the best tool of any photography software, levels and curves. Let me get some water. Now, level and curves, it's extremely useful. I personally recommend you to use it with care. For example, in this case, I want to recover some shadow highlight from this bright area. So I'm gonna click that and pull it down, see if there is anything that helping me. You can see that I hugely recovered a lot of highlight, which is extraordinary. Now, I want to show you something. I'm going to go back to original value, right? Now I want to show you exactly. You can set black point. I'm going to set a black point with this little man over there. I'm going to set white point. Probably this is the widest of all. And neutral point, I sincerely don't know, but if I have to assume, probably the floor. There you go, because it looks a lot grayer. And then anchor. So this is where you can set anchor. For example, I'm going to select here, so we can see that there is a dot right there. Now you can control just that, but be careful. You have to click something right there to make sure that your other anchor doesn't affect the whole curve. Now I can push back and forth. Anyway, I'm going to go back to original value so that it doesn't affect too much. So you get the idea. Then you can click, what do you call it, auto contrast, so that it can set the contrast for you. You can reset it, followed by reset all channels. So if you have changed RGB separately, you can reset all of them. Gamma and brightness, more or less the same thing, but you can see the change in the middle. You can see that gamma is not saturating your colors either, which is a good news. That means that you can use that without affecting your saturation. That's a very good news, guys. I'm telling you. So level, this is how you set the level, like that, which is very good. Like this curve is, I think, how many times I said that? I think I realized that I've been repeating it constantly, that curve is the best, curve is the best, curve is the best. Because if you know how to use curve, you don't need to know anything about anything else when it comes to contrast control. Now, lightness, chroma, and hue adjustment. What the heck is this? God, help me. Now I'm here for you. Lightness is the brightness. Chroma is the color. Hue is the type of color. When you change the lightness, you change the brightness of certain color. Chroma is generally you're controlling the saturation of that color. Hue, you're changing the color. In this case, let's say you have a red right there. Next to it, you have green. Here's the thing. I'm gonna select on this red. It might affect the rest of the red as well, but let's, for the sake of example, let's just stick with that. Now make sure you keep your width a little bit higher. The reason why, check this one out. If I put it all the way down, your width will affect the rest of it a little bit. So you can either affect the rest of the color, or you can constrain it within the red zone. Now if I go all the way down, what's happening? You can see the red is kind of getting, I'm going to go back again. I think that I lost my red. If I go all the way down, it's getting a little bit less saturated. I'm going to make the width a little bit bigger. See, the red bag became less saturated. Right. I'm going to go back again to the original value. You get the idea for the chroma. If I changed to hue, do exactly the same. Make the width a little bit bigger. What's happening? You see that it's changing the color. Where is going? Now, if you move it all over place, and then it's going to affect the rest of the color as well. But you don't need to worry about that. Now, for fun, you have the green here. I'm going to play with the green scenario. Like that. Make the width a little bit bigger. Now, go all the way down. Go all the way up. It's like a Disneyland. Now, color lightness. What's happening here? I'm going to do the same thing. For example, I will come back to the original value. Select my dropper. Click on the green. Make the width a little bit bigger. Now, you can either reduce the brightness of the green. Make sure it's a little bit bigger too. Or you can make it super bright. Oh, I lost my... So what's happening, I just learned, which is if you go up and down, but if you touch really high, it comes back, which is something interesting that I just learned. Master lightness, which is basically the curve. Welcome back. Funny. We all come back to the curve. We all come back to the daddy. Anyway, more or less, that's exactly the same thing. This is how the light, chroma, and hue works. Color booster, again, be careful because it's like a color vibrant, not saturation. You can go all the way up. It will become like a freaking Disneyland or Avatar or Avengers, or you can be polite and normal human being and use with moderation. Yeah, people and nature. So you can either click one of that because it depends on where you are trying to apply your saturation. You can select and the algorithm will find out exactly where to apply. Now, noise reduction. You know, I'm not a big fan of noise reduction in any software. People are crying for noise reduction. They like, ooh, Topaz noise reduction, on-one noise reduction, no noise reduction, PRO, DxO, Seriously, camera technology advanced so far. If you have a new camera, you generally do not need any kind of noise reduction much. The one that you already have in your camera or software, this software, for example, should be enough. But anyway, everyone has their own need. Who knows? I mean, it's important, but don't need to cry out loud, for God's sake. I keep my noise reduction as normal, especially in this case, for example. You can clearly see that my photo is so, kind of clipped the highlight. Totally normal. I don't care about this photo. I'm just showing you how the tool works. Edge noise reduction, astro noise reduction. So if you are in astrophotography, you have a button dedicated for astrophotography to reduce noise from your astro photos. I think I use the word astro like no tomorrow. Sharpness adjustment, when you reduce noise, you also reduce the sharpness. You can compensate with the sharpness. So don't overuse it. Guys, I repeat, do not overuse it. Just zoom as much as you can. Use slightly. Majority of your photo will end up in social media. Barely gonna be end up on the wall. So don't sweat it. Right. Now touch up. What is the retouch touch up? There you go. In this one, you can click it and you can, do some brushing. You can click the auto, click there. It depends on what type of noise, what type of, dust spots do you have in your photo. Other than that, you don't really need it, to be honest with you. I don't have any kind of anything in this particular photo, so I'm not going to waste my time showing it. And your time, of course, your time. I care about you. And color control tool. Let's see. Aha, that's the one that everybody talking about in DxO. Now you have it here. Here's an interesting part. You don't see it now where I used my circle. And you should be able to see it right about now. So when you move it, for example, here now, you should be able to see exactly where it's affecting. Right now, it's affecting the trees. So this is the beauty of this color control point. I mean, God save the Queen. Seriously. I'm running out of my vocabulary, but you get the idea. Like, this is beautiful. This thing can save a lot of life because you know exactly where your brush is affecting, and you can exactly, adjust your color and contrast on that particular area. So every time you move it, for example, I'm going to move from leaves to branches. And you can see it affecting just the brown branches and got rid of the green tree. If it's not beautiful, I don't know what it is. I'm going to do something here. See? Anything that similar to the color of the tree are being affected within that area. Oh boy, oh boy. I mean, it's wonderful. Just simply wonderful. So you can change the side of it. So BCS, brightness, color, saturation. HSB, hue, saturation, brightness. All of it, if you want to control everything, then you can do that of that particular area. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on that, only because that this you should be able to. I just showed you where to go and what it does and how can you see your affected areas by show affected area, don't show affected area, etc. You can also go to the do not apply to selected area. In fact, it will do the opposite, if I understand correctly. So you do not apply to the selected area. The color picker at the bottom is interesting because, for example, remember the gentleman with the red bag? I'm going to pick on him. Now, eventually, the color picker will change its color. Now it's white because the white is the one that's going to be affected. If you change the color to something else, it will show to that color and everything else will be black. But I don't recommend it, personally speaking. Okay, I'm gonna stop it because my screen went dark. Anything else? At the bottom, you have the adjustment, composition. So crop, straighten. You can straight the image. I think that is pretty straight anyway, so you don't need that. But you have it. You have the perspective control. Depends on if you have a photo of a building. You have the vertical and horizontal perspective control. You have the camera correction, especially for the moire or image dust off or on. It's pretty much basic in anywhere. I think that you know that already. The lens correction, obviously. And that's about it. To be honest, that's about it. The reason why I didn't waste too much time on that, because particularly in this software tutorial, just like my other software tutorial, it's amazing. You have everything you need. You actually have everything. I cannot stress it too much. Everything you need, just like, Lightroom, just like DxO PhotoLab. You cannot beat this software because this is the best software for any Nikon camera. Simple as that. And providing this type of tools for free, this is a dream come true. So enjoy it, learn photography, and seriously, go get a life.